The upcoming Avengers Doomsday has had a really interesting history, beginning life as Avengers Kang Dynasty. It underwent major changes, including a new writer and directors, and it ended up becoming Doomsday. But the biggest surprise? Robert Downey Jr. returning, but this time as Doctor Doom, an announcement that wasn't received the best by fans. Myself and many others really can't see him portraying this character how we expect it, and it seems weird considering how iconic his performance as Stark was. That said, it certainly is intriguing. It must be done for a reason. Surely, why bring RDJ in as Doom? And then, more recently, we had the shock confirmation that the original X-Men will appear in this movie. Again, this led to a lot of concern among fans that this movie is purely reliant on cameos and nostalgia. But I have a theory, an idea based on the comics which actually makes this prospect work, which shows that this isn't cause for concern and could actually be exciting, that makes their inclusion more than just fan service. So let's dive into the film's tumultuous history, cast announcement, potential comic influences, and break down what Avengers Doomsday might be about. Hello and welcome to Cinemaze, and subscribe to see more videos like this. Well, the best place to start to look for what this film might be about would be the comic. Most of the major MCU movies are titled in a way that you roughly know what movie you are getting. Captain America Civil War takes the ideas and the themes of the Civil War comic. Infinity War is influenced by the Infinity War and Gauntlet comics, and you would expect Secret Wars to be along the same line. While they never adapt the story directly, they take the DNA of those events, the core ideas, and they adapt them in new ways to fit the universe. But it does mean you roughly know what the movie is about based on the title. However, Doomsday stands out. It doesn't directly tie clearly to a Marvel comic. The most prominent comic titled Doomsday is Ultimate Doomsday, an event which unravels a mystery of the new villain of the Ultimate Universe. And that villain is revealed to be Reed Richards, not Doctor Doom. So I find it unlikely that it will be adapting that comic. So instead, it might follow the footsteps of Endgame, a unique chapter crafted specifically for the MCU. So what else could be the influence here? Well, what about the earlier history when it started as Kang Dynasty? Of course, that would be featuring Kang as the villain, not Doctor Doom, but I don't think it's unrealistic that it might take some ideas from that draft of the story, especially considering how quickly the production is on Doomsday and the complexity of signing on actors and contracts. I wouldn't be surprised if some things carried over. Now, very little is known about this version of the film. Kang would be the villain, Shang-Chi director was signed on, and supposedly Shang-Chi would be a key player, and we knew that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men would not appear in the film. That's pretty much all we knew, and almost all of that has changed. Kang is no longer the villain, the director's out, the Fantastic Four are in the cast, and so are other versions of the X-Men. So the only thing that remains is Shang-Chi. Kang Dynasty is also a comic event, and so maybe some ideas from that comic would influence the original version of the script, which may now influence Doomsday. Kang isn't a key player in either version of the Secret Wars stories, and yet was originally going to be the big bad for Secret Wars. So maybe it can work the other way around, and Doom takes ideas from Kang's stories. Now, the most famous moment from this comic is Kang destroying all of Washington DC, and maybe this would tie into the political undertones of recent MCU projects. Kang Dynasty is also notable for Kang being the first villain in Marvel Comics to take over the world without mind control, with Doom being the only villain to have done this before, but he used mind control. So a moment with Doom taking over the world instead of Kang doesn't feel out of the question. But for the most part, I don't see this comic being adapted for Doom. And honestly, I think it would only be a loose inspiration anyway for Kang, in the way that Age of Ultron is only really like that comic in name and villain. Now, we also know Quantumania set up the Council of Kangs, and I think that is more akin to what Kang Dynasty was going to be. A movie where multiple different Kangs battle different Avengers. You could have used the space-based Avengers fighting Scarlet Centurion, the ground street-level teams face Mr. Griffin, a grounded businessman version of Kang, and the mythical supernatural characters could fight Rama-Tut, the Egyptian pharaoh time-traveling version of Kang. This approach would explain the lack of a main Avengers team and instead tie together the different pockets of the MCU that began to appear across phases 4 to 6. Heroes would team up within their areas, form new relationships, and then do the massive team up all together in Secret Wars with the main villain as Kang. However, I don't think this approach works for Doom. Doom isn't about variants. There should only be one Doom. He's interesting because of how much of a threat he is himself and due to his relationship with Reed Richards. So I think there would only be one Doom, and that basically means this idea is out the window. Now, once Kang was gone and RDJ was confirmed, shortly after, we began to hear rumours that Chris Evans would appear in Avengers Doomsday. Now, he denies this and he wasn't on the most recent casting announcement, but we all know that we can't trust anyone when they say they aren't in a Marvel movie. And this one feels like the type of announcement they would keep secret and not tell us beforehand. And the inclusion of Evans led to speculation that this could be a multiverse version of the Dark Avengers. Not in the way like the Thunderbolts could be connected to the Dark Avengers, but in the way more like the comics themselves, where you have a team of villains masquerading as existing versions of heroes deceiving the public. With Downey playing a Doom who looks like Stark, he could pretend to be Stark. We could then have an evil version of Captain America, and this would explain specifically why RDJ is coming back. Doom looking like RDJ plays into this story. And of course, they'd then bring in ScarJo as an evil Black Widow. We get Maestro Hulk, Hawkeye who stayed as Ronan, and an evil version of Thor. There is also a comic on the build up to Secret Wars where the Avengers face an evil version of the classic Avengers team who come from an alternate universe whose reality was destroyed by an incursion. So this could be a version of that, and it does tie into Secret Wars. Either way, this setup would create a smaller scale personal story about reclaiming the Avengers teams rather than going straight to multiverse, because right now we don't know the team, and this plot would use that to its advantage. Plus, the villains would use the vacuum to their advantage, and the writers would be using the lack of connectivity between phases 4 and 5 to their advantage. It would tie into the multiverse without it being a large scale, and the massive team up can be saved for Secret Wars. But we never got any other serious rumors about this. Now, it doesn't mean the idea is out of the question, but I think if they were doing dark alternate Avengers against the new Avengers, I think their returning cast would be advertised in the same way that the returning X-Men cast are. And then the next thing we got was the leaked concept art, which was originally leaked as Doomsday concept art. If you don't want to hear anything about the leak, skip ahead to the timestamp on screen. Basically, this concept shows Doomsday taking place on Battleworld. Now, Battleworld is the location of both the 80s Secret Wars and the 2015 Secret Wars. And in the 2015 Secret Wars, it is a world created from the scraps of different universes by Doom and structured into a world that suits him, that he presides over as God. When this came out, this was listed as Doomsday Leak, which was surprising as this looked much more similar to how you'd expect Secret Wars to look. But the more I thought about it, the more it could actually work. In this concept, the inhabitants of Battleworld are unaware of how they ended up there, similar to how the audience might experience this new world themselves. This could lead to a plot where the Avengers team is slowly formed. It would use the lack of connectivity in phases 4 to 6 and the lack of an Avengers team to its advantage, because it's now about forming the team for the first time on Battleworld. And the film would culminate in the realization that the world is a fabrication. This setup could then lead into Secret Wars, where the battle to undo Battleworld and restore the real world becomes the focus. However, the leaked concept art doesn't align with the characters in the latest casting announcements. Other than Doom, Sue Storm, and Reed Richards, weirdly, all of the characters in the art are not the ones in Doomsday. Hulk, She-Hulk, Star-Lord, White Vision, Wong, Young Avengers, Doctor Strange, and even a new Black Panther. And there's no sign of any legacy characters like the X-Men, which makes me think that this is not a leak for Doomsday. Now, there's a chance that this is just an old version and they've changed the cast since the concept art was made. And of course, more likely, the art could just not be real. But more importantly, there's a chance that this is not Doomsday and this is from Secret Wars. The fact that most of the people in this art are the people who are not in the cast announcement actually makes me believe it is real, but it's Secret Wars. Like the characters who weren't cast line up almost too perfectly with this art. Doom could have already begun to make Battleworld, and that's why some characters are missing in Doomsday, because they've already been taken there, or he defeats the cast of Doomsday, which leaves only these Secret Wars cast to be together on Battleworld to save the day in Secret Wars. But again, this doesn't answer the crucial question: what is Avengers Doomsday? And I think this is where the cast announcement gives us the biggest clue for what this movie could be. Now, I won't be going through the cast actor by actor, but if you want that, you can watch the video that I made ranking the cast, but I will be covering the interesting players here. Basically, we see the cast split into 5 teams: the Avengers, the Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, Wakanda, and the X-Men from the 2000s X-Men movies. And it's easy to see this announcement and just think it's a cameo fest relying on nostalgia to sell the movie. They're forcing in returning actors, and we can probably expect loads more secret cameos, but I don't think that's the case. I think for them to be announced, they will be more than cameos, actual key players. I just think this cast is too specific and it's very focused. Not every MCU character is here. That's what Secret Wars will be. They haven't announced a bunch of different returning actors from different universes, just the Fox X-Men universe. And with all that information, let's answer the question, what do I think this is adapting? Now, there's a chance this is set on Battleworld, a patchwork world made out of parts of other universes. For the film, this could be the main MCU, the Fox universe, universe, maybe the Fantastic Four's universe, if their movie ends with them still in their universe. However, I don't think that's the case. Instead, I think Doomsday will be the build-up to Battleworld, drawing heavy inspiration from Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars comic, specifically the build-up to Secret Wars called Time Runs Out, which is arguably a better series of comics than Secret Wars itself. Now, that title, Time Runs Out, evokes a similar feeling to Doomsday, that being of a ticking clock countdown until everything is gonna end. And that is the theme of this. In the comics, the Avengers discover the universe is ending due to incursions, a term that we heard mentioned in Doctor Strange 2. Now, these are collisions between two Earths from different universes, where only one can survive. One Earth has to be destroyed to save the rest of both universes. But what's interesting about these incursions is that they keep happening. The Avengers have to find inventive ways to stop them without destroying either universe, without killing a world. But time is running out and the incursions keep coming. Now, this leads to a fracture in the Avengers team splitting into two. There's the more traditional team led by Captain America. This is a team who will always try to do the right thing, who will do anything to not destroy the other universe. And then you have the other team with Stark and Richards. This team are the opposite. They're willing to do anything to save their Earth, even if it means destroying another Earth. And so these two teams find themselves at odds. Now, we've already kind of done this fracture in the MCU post-Civil War, but if we look at the MCU cast for Doomsday, we do have two main Earth teams. One, an Avengers team led by Captain America, and the other, the Thunderbolts. A more morally grey team who may have less of a code and may be more willing to do anything to survive. So this team structure may be the MCU's version of how this event goes in the comics. Now, in the comics, there's two key incursions that stand out to me. The first is that they eventually get to a point where Reed Richards and other great minds build a weapon capable of destroying another Earth. Now, they don't want to use it, but they know that they may need it. And they face an incursion against another world of superheroes. These aren't Marvel heroes, but heroes we don't recognize, called the Great Society. They're essentially Marvel versions of DC heroes, the Justice Society or the Justice League, and they're considered truly good heroes. They don't want to fight the Avengers, but it has to happen to save their planet. And the Avengers know that their only hope is destroying the other world. But no one is willing to press the button. No one except Namor. And that's why I find Namor's inclusion in the Doomsday cast so interesting, because he plays a key role in stopping incursions and making decisions that no one else is willing to make throughout the comic. He has more of an edge, he's the wild card, and a role as not quite a hero or villain that other characters just can't replicate. Namor doesn't feel like a character you'd expect in an Avengers movie, so the fact that Namor has been chosen here makes me think that they're taking influence from this comic. And after this event, more incursions occur, and it ends with the final incursion. Only two Earths in the whole multiverse remain: 616, the main continuity, and 1610, the ultimate universe, most famous for Miles Morales and the Maker. This is the incursion event that happens right before Secret Wars, the collision of the two most prominent Marvel universes. Our characters fight for a bit before realizing it's pointless, and then a few people from both universes escape while the rest of the universes are merged together in Secret Wars. And the characters who escape are the ones who are the focus of Secret Wars as they try to fix the world. Now, in live action, we have a main universe, essentially the equivalent of the comics main universe, 616, the MCU. But we don't have an ultimate universe. But what's the closest thing that we do have to it? A universe outside of the MCU with beloved characters that would feel meaningful to collide with the MCU, where it would be fun to see them fight our main MCU characters, but ultimately we want both universes to survive. The Fox universe. So I don't think the X-Men being included is just for the sake of making a cameo. I think Doomsday will be about the collision of these two universes together as they both try to survive. It's a great way to adapt the Time Runs Out story, but make it relevant to the cinematic universes that exist, using universes we care about in the same way that the comics use the Ultimate Universe. There is also a moment in the comics where Namor and some other villains end up stuck in the Ultimate Universe before the incursion, and they try to prepare the Ultimate Universe for the collision with the main universe. And we could see something similar happening here, but instead of Namor, it's now Monica Rambeau, someone who we know is stuck in a version of the Fox universe and could help to prepare them. Why else send her there in the first place? Now, I'm not sure how Doom will factor into this yet. In the comics, he's seen as someone trying to stop the incursions, but it's later revealed he's the one causing everything. And it's possible we'll see Doom pretending to be a savior working alongside our teams, only to reveal his true villainous nature later. Or he might openly be evil from the start. The movie is called Doomsday after all. I can see Doom causing incursions while he hunts down the power to create Battleworld. In the 2015 Secret Wars, Doom creates Battleworld by using using Molecule Man's credible abilities. And without Molecule Man in the MCU, we need a character with multiverse level powers. Who could that be? None other than Loki, who following Loki Season 2 has the power to hold the multiverse together. I could see Loki being the MCU equivalent of Molecule Man, which would explain his inclusion in the cast considering he's the only character who doesn't neatly fit into one of the 5 teams. Think with Doomsday being a build up to Secret Wars, with a title referencing an end of time scenario, with 2 main MCU teams with different moral codes, with Namor being a key player, with someone trapped within the other universe, with a key character existing with ultimate multiversal power, with the mention of incursions, and most importantly, with a cast list which seems to establish 2 specific universes we care about. I think we're getting an adaptation of Hickman's Time Runs Out story, with a collision between the MCU and the Fox X-Men universe. And honestly, I think this is a really smart way to make the multiverse work, taking inspiration from the comics but bending it to match the history of Marvel films. And if they can pull this off, it won't feel like cheap cameos, but instead a fantastic, well thought out build up to Secret Wars, because that's exactly what the comics feel like. That build up is so good, and if that is what they're adapting, it makes me way more confident in this movie. And it explains why they've revealed this cast, because they're going to be key players, not cameos. And so I think Avengers Doomsday is going to be an adaptation of Time Runs Out, which is honestly a great idea, if they can pull it off. Hope you enjoyed my video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you read these comics? Would you like to see it adapted? What did you think of this cast announcement? I've seen a lot of negativity, but it did great views and it really got people talking. I don't think it's going to be cheap cameos because I don't think they'd announce it if that was the case. They'd keep it hidden. I think these must be important players, and once I realized that, I enjoyed this cast a lot more. And do you like the sound of my theory? If you enjoyed this, please give the video a like. It helps my channel out so much. And if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe. I'm aiming to hit 10,000 subscribers this year. So please subscribe to help me get there and to see more videos like this on Marvel, DC, or anything else amazing going on in cinema. But for now, thanks for watching Cinemaze.